The rise and fall of the Scythians in Western Asia. The fascinating Scythians were a powerful nomadic group for a short time in Western Asia, until they came into conflict with the Medes. Here is their story. The Scythians were a nomadic people of Iranian origins who roamed the Eurasian steppes, across an area spanning from modern-day Kazakhstan to the Ukraine, including the Black Sea Basin, Siberia, and the Caucasus. They were powerful in the region from the 7th to the 4th century BC. This article will explore their origins, their rise, and their eventual fall. There is still much debate as to where the Scythians came from, but fingers seem point toward the Minasinsk Hollow, near the river Yenisei Basin, which lies between Krasnoyarsk Krai and the republics of Khakassia and Tuva in Russia. Indeed, around the late 8th century BCE, the hordes known to us as the Scythians show great similarities to local Kurgan burials, while animal depictions in their art are similar to their eastern relatives, the Karasuk culture of the Late Bronze Age. Rising temperatures and better more humid conditions heralded an abundance of grassland in the area, which could support a large population. This steady change carved the way for new generations to start migrating to the west into the Pontic steppe. In this already populated land, a variety of late Bronze Age sedentary cultures came under pressure from nomadic horse-riding people. Battles were fought and many were assimilated by the Scythians, who pushed further until they reached the Black Sea Basin. They drove the local Cimmerians out of their land, and they converted this region of the southern Ukraine into a base of operations from which to launch their frequent raids and attacks on Western Asia and the Near East. The Assyrian Annals of Esarhaddon are the first source to mention the Scythian invasion of the Near East. They settled in Mania, to the east of Assyria, and they profited from being mercenaries. Some tried to change the political situation in their interest, and they were successful in varying degrees for 28 years in both the Near East and Asia Minor. Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, 681 to 669 BC, was campaigning in Mania when the Scythian king ᴍᴜᴜ joined in with his army against the Assyrians. It seems ᴍᴜᴜ was killed in this war and King Ʇᴜ succeeded him. In 672 BCE he asked for Esarhaddon's daughter Sarytra's hand in marriage. The Assyrians appear to have admired the Scythians' martial abilities, and an alliance was formed between them against the Urartu kingdom, centered in what is today Armenia. The Assyrians appear to have seen it as a bigger threat than the Scythians at the time. The marriage between 괱ᴜ and Sarytra does not appear in Assyrian texts, but a text does show Esarhaddon asking the oracle of the sun god Shamash about this subject: "Will 괱ᴜ, if he takes my daughter, speak words of true friendship, keep the oath of Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, and do all that is good for Esarhaddon, king of Assyria?" After Esarhaddon's death in 669 BCE, his son Ashurbanipal became the king of Assyria. The honeymoon between the two nations continued under Ashurbanipal's reign until the Assyrian king decided to remove Ashari, a puppet king under Scythian influence who ruled Mania. After the Scythians lost their grip on Mania, they headed west and brought upon the Assyrians a series of raids throughout the whole of Syria and the Levant. Eventually they reached the Egyptian border, which was until quite recently part of the Assyrian dominion. Herodotus says that Psamtik I of Egypt bribed the horde to withdraw back into Syria. The Assyrians were facing troubles from the Babylonians, who had been granted their independence and had allied themselves with the Medes under Cyaxares. The remnants of Media, together with the Neo-Babylonians, could have posed a terrifying threat to the Assyrians. However, the Scythians, led by Medes, came to help, and they successfully broke a siege imposed by the allied forces on the Assyrian capital at Nineveh. While there, they defeated the Medes in a pitched battle. It is true that a victory against the Assyrians was not possible until the Scythians lost their power in Asia. The Scythians lost most of their most prominent lords, and some of those who survived engaged in the sack of Nineveh alongside the Medes and the Neo-Babylonians. The Assyrians never recovered after that, while the Scythians headed back home north of the Caucasus, and upon reaching home they immediately faced problems with their women and children who they had left behind 30 years ago, although it was the veterans who won the day. Antiquity has brought forth many fascinating societies and nations, and the Scythians were among these. They were distinctive for their peculiar art, their style of warfare, and their culture. This spotlight on their culture hopes to erase the shadows of the unknown and bring to light more fascinating stories about their way of life and their history.